What if the city you fell in love with online was never the city you were actually going to live in? The photos show glass towers at golden hour. The reels show rooftop bars, farmers markets, and bike lanes that look like they belong in a travel magazine. The cost of living calculators glow green. And somewhere between the Pinterest board and the moving truck, you convinced yourself that you had finally cracked the code. But that version of a city is always built for visitors. It is packaged, filtered, and curated for people who are just passing through. Real life shows up later. On a random Tuesday afternoon, when the traffic won't move, the rent just jumped again, and the city you researched for 6 months feels nothing like the city you actually moved into. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on 10 beautiful U.S. cities that are miserable to live in. If you are tired of falling for the facade, hit subscribe, because today we are tearing down the illusions, one city at a time. Miami sells itself with an almost aggressive confidence. The skyline shimmers. The beaches are genuinely world-class. The nightlife, the culture, the Latin energy, none of that is fabricated. On paper and on your screen, Miami looks like the answer to every question about where to live. Then you move in. Miami consistently ranks as one of the least affordable cities in the entire United States relative to local wages. The median household income hovers around $47,000, while average rent for a one-bedroom apartment has crossed $2,500 a month. That math does not work, and no amount of ocean breeze fixes it. The disconnect runs deeper than rent. Miami's traffic infrastructure is built for a city a fraction of its current size. Commutes that look like 8 miles on a map routinely consume over an hour of your day. Public transit is an afterthought, and hurricane season is not a statistic. It is a recurring psychological and financial event that locals have simply learned to absorb. The philosophical punchline: Miami is a world-class destination wearing a livable city costume. It performs brilliance for the weekend crowd and quietly exhausts everyone who stayed. The branding says big coastal city. The experience says drive 45 minutes and maybe it clicks. Los Angeles is less a city and more a collection of expensive neighborhoods connected by one of the most punishing freeway systems ever designed. The average Angelino spends over 100 hours a year stuck in traffic, the equivalent of more than 2 full work weeks gone. Median home prices in LA have pushed past $900,000. The homeless population is the largest of any city in the nation. The gap between the Instagram version of Los Angeles and the Tuesday afternoon version is not a gap. It is a canyon. Honolulu is the city that people describe in size. The beaches, the culture, the year-round warmth. It sounds less like a city and more like a permanent vacation. And that is precisely the trap. Hawaii consistently ranks as the most expensive state in the nation. Groceries cost 60% more than the national average. A gallon of milk is not a small purchase. The median home price on Oahu has crossed $1.1 million. The average resident spends nearly 70% of their income on housing. That is not a cost of living statistic. That is a quality of life emergency dressed in tropical clothes. The island geography compounds everything. There is no driving to the next affordable suburb. There is no just move a bit further out. You are on an island, and the island sets the terms. San Francisco gave the world the language of innovation. The fog-draped hills, the Victorians, the Bay, Few cities in America carry more visual poetry. And yet San Francisco has been quietly losing its own population for years, with more residents leaving than arriving. The median rent for a one-bedroom apartment exceeds $3,000 a month. Property crime rates rank among the highest of any major American city. Fentanyl and homelessness have reshaped entire neighborhoods in ways that no real estate listing will disclose. The city that pioneered the tech economy cannot afford to house the teachers, nurses, and service workers that keep it functional. At first, it feels like you outsmarted the system, a great city, a prestigious zip code, a career opportunity. Then you start noticing how the system actually works here. And the math starts looking less like opportunity and more like attrition. Austin spent a decade as the internet's favorite relocation fantasy. Keep Austin Weird became a brand. The music, the tech scene, the Texas tax advantages, the pitch was nearly perfect. And for a while it worked. Then everyone showed up at once. Austin's population grew by nearly 33% in a single decade. Infrastructure did not grow with it. Traffic on I-35 now rivals Los Angeles. The average home price has more than doubled since 2019. Property taxes, the quiet villain of the Texas no-income tax narrative, routinely run 2 to 3% of home value annually. A $500,000 home generates $10,000 in property taxes every year. The savings evaporate faster than the pitch suggested. Summer temperatures now routinely exceed 100 degrees for weeks at a time. The 2021 power grid failure left millions without heat in freezing temperatures, exposing a structural vulnerability that has still not been fully resolved. The city's identity was built on affordability and authenticity. Both are now under serious pressure. Nashville positioned itself as the approachable alternative to the coastal cities. Country music, bachelorette economy, southern hospitality, no state income tax. The narrative was clean and the growth was enormous. Nashville added over 100 new residents every single day for nearly a decade. The consequences are now visible everywhere. Rents have increased by over 40% in 5 years. Traffic has become a daily crisis for a road network that was never designed for a city of this size. The affordable Nashville that drew people in has largely been demolished and replaced with something considerably more expensive and considerably less charming. Hit the like button if you have ever ignored the fine print, because this next reality check is unforgiving. Denver's pitch is built on altitude and lifestyle. The mountains are real. The outdoor culture is real. The craft beer is also real. But so is an air quality problem driven by ozone levels that routinely place Denver among the worst cities in the nation for respiratory health. So is a housing market that has priced out the workforce that makes the city function. So is a fentanyl crisis that has quietly made certain parts of the city deeply unsafe. The mountain views are still there. Everything behind them is considerably more complicated. New Orleans is one of the most culturally singular cities on earth. The food, the music, the architecture, the spirit. No city in America carries the same weight of living tradition. And yet New Orleans is also one of the most dangerous cities in the United States, with a per capita murder rate that has repeatedly ranked number 1 nationally. Flood risk is not a historical footnote. It is an ongoing municipal reality. Entire neighborhoods sit below sea level. protected by an aging infrastructure system that was catastrophically exposed in 2005 and has required continuous federal investment ever since. Homeowners insurance has become so expensive or simply unavailable that residents are making decisions about whether to stay or go based purely on what coverage they can still obtain. New Orleans does not hide its dysfunction. It wears it openly, almost proudly. The question is whether you can afford, financially, emotionally, and practically, to love a city that will not make it easy. Phoenix presents itself as the Sun Belt success story. Affordable land, explosive growth, warm winters, and a business-friendly environment. The numbers are real. Phoenix is one of the fastest-growing metros in the country. What the growth projections do not fully address is the water. Phoenix sits in the Sonoran Desert, and the Colorado River, its primary water source, has been under sustained stress for years. Lake Mead, the reservoir that supplies much of the region, dropped to historically low levels in recent years, triggering federal shortage declarations. Urban heat island effects now push summer temperatures past 115 degrees regularly. Heat-related deaths in Maricopa County have increased dramatically. The city was built on the assumption of infinite resource availability. That assumption is now being stress-tested in real time. Before we uncover the final illusion, drop a comment below if you saw this twist coming. Charlotte markets itself as the financial hub of the South. Clean, modern, professional. A city that figured out its identity early. But Charlotte has one of the lowest rates of economic mobility of any major city in the United States. Children born into lower-income households in Charlotte have a statistically harder time climbing the economic ladder than nearly anywhere else in the country. The skyline is impressive. The branding is polished. The opportunity gap is real, wide, and largely invisible to anyone who didn't grow up inside it. Charlotte doesn't fail loudly. It fails quietly on the inside, in the data that the welcome packets never include. Here is the uncomfortable truth that connects all 10 cities. None of them lied to you. Miami's beaches are real. Austin's energy is real. New Orleans' culture is irreplaceable. San Francisco's ambition is genuine. These cities did not manufacture their appeal. They curated it. They showed you the best version of themselves and allowed you to fill in the rest with your own hopes. That is what cities do. That is what great marketing does. The failure is not the cities. The failure is the framework we use to evaluate them. We research neighborhoods on apps that were designed by people who profit when we move. We watch reels edited to 30 seconds that compress years of someone else's highlight reel into a feeling. We read cost of living calculators that measure averages for people whose income and circumstances are nothing like ours. And we make a decision that reshapes our entire life based on a Tuesday that never existed. A perfect, frictionless, aesthetically flawless Tuesday that was always fictional. The cities on this list are not failures. They are complicated. They are full of real people building real lives inside genuinely difficult conditions. The question was never whether these cities are beautiful. They are. The question is whether the version you fell in love with online can survive its first real Tuesday afternoon. More often than not, the answer is no. And knowing that before you sign the lease is worth more than any real estate algorithm will ever tell you.